Humphreys. There's 12 minutes remaining in the slot, actually. You're relegated 10.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just start by thanking both the Minister and Minister Hayes as well that's in the House, but also the backroom people, the civil service that facilitated this bill coming so quickly to the House. Often that work isn't recognised, and I just want to duly recognise the diligent work that took place to get this here so quickly. Often when people talk in the House, the chamber is quite empty, but I know most deputies are listening in on our televisions in the offices. And last night I was one of those deputies that was listening to the debate in the office, and I was listening to Deputy Boy Barrett and his calls to default on the interest on the national debt. Now, I was a little bit shocked, but I suppose I shouldn't be. And I certainly wasn't surprised, because Deputy Boy Barrett, since he came into this House, has been more interested in protest than people. And we've worked extremely hard to right the finances of this country. Let's look at that debt he's talking about defaulting on. It's about 200 billion at this stage. About 40 billion of that is actually tied to the banking crisis. That's 1/5. It's a huge amount. 40 billion is a huge amount. And I'm as angry as anyone else in relation to that. An Anglo-Irish bank indeed has a role in that, and I hope that will be taken in due course in the manner it should be. I know I am, and it is. Can I also say...
The Chair has total composure. Please proceed, Deputy.
Can I also say, when I read the Anglo tapes that the Sunday Independent published, and then I listened to Deputy Doherty yesterday to say that he had similar tapes in his possession for over 3 weeks, that often reminds me of kind of a military tactic. When an army is in a retreat, they put up a smoke screen. And I think that's very much what we've seen this week. We've seen the tapes held by what's called a Democratic Party for 3 weeks, not handed over to the guards or to the Governor of the Central Bank, but then held as a smokescreen, knowing what was coming down the line in documentaries on RTE and other stations. Can I say the rest of the debt, which is about 160 billion, and I know the Chair is kind of biting his tongue to correct me on figures, but we'll work in the rough figures, and what has that money been spent on? It's been spent on public services, social protection, capital investment and salaries. So the default on the 9 million per year of interest, as Deputy Barrett calls for, would destroy many sectors of our society and is a highly irresponsible policies. And there is a wing of this House that is more interested in protest than solutions. And we listen to it day in and day out from the height of the backbench on my left-hand side. Let's see what that default would mean. It would result, I would say, in tens of thousands of jobs lost from foreign direct investment in this economy. But then that may suit people that are more interested in protest rather than the Irish people. It would block Irish companies and semi-states from borrowing for investment in future jobs, again falling, meaning that we would higher unemployment figures. But then that may suit people that are more interested in protest rather than people. Tax revenue would collapse, and the state would not be able to provide the safety net, as no one would lend us to in reasonable terms. Over the last 3 years, we have slowly closed the deficit by protecting public spending, and this budget will hopefully bring in a primary surplus, and I think that's the target we're aiming for and we're moving towards. That has caused grave difficulties, both for the citizen and for the government. But through their hard work and diligence and the pain that has been inflicted on Ireland, we are slowly coming through. So to default, as Deputy Boy Barrett wants us to do, will actually destroy the very same services he articulates in a passionate term that he wishes to protect. So I really ask, is there a vested interest in parties in this House that are more interested in protest rather than solutions? Minister, this country, and I think the government, has to take some credit for the renegotiations of our debt rates, for the promissory notes. And sure, it's always said, she would have got it in anyway. But it wouldn't. It was hard work, it was diplomacy, and it was delivered. Deputy Mary Lou McDonald said she didn't want to hear Labour backbenchers, one of our favourite terms, Labour backbenchers or government backbenchers, crowing. Well, I don't come into this House to crow. I know very clearly, and Timmy Dooley, the face of what happened to this country, sits there and laughs. But I celebrate every additional job in my community. I celebrate every child that's been taught in a classroom rather than in a prefab. And during the years of boom, those children were in 12 and 14-year-old prefabs. This government is building classrooms. And that should be remembered. So take that giggle, Deputy, and go. And, Fianna Fáil promised us, and Deputy Dooley, I'm glad you're here, Fianna Fáil promised us constructive opposition. I have to say that faded very quickly with the submission they made on the budget. But not surprising with the faces of Martin, O'Dea and Kelleher. The faces that put this country into hock. The faces that caused the bailout. The faces that brought the Troika to this country. So well you should cost your budget submissions. Out goes responsible opposition, and in comes spend and bust again, what Fianna Fáil has given to this country for decades. Minister, may I just move on to particular measures within the budget? And I thank Minister Noonan's remarks earlier on about the single parent's childcare credit, and that he will accept and he will look at amendments to that at committee stage. Now, Minister, many fathers, and it really certainly all the calls that came to my office in relation to this were from fathers. And many of those fathers are the responsible fathers that pays the maintenance and pays it week in and week out. I'd ask the Minister to look at a range of proposals on how we can alleviate that measure and actually improving it. Minister, if the partnership tax relief can be phased out over 4 years, there's no reason why the same can't be done in relation to this. A lot of these maintenance costs are already established through court proceedings. So I think and accept Minister Noonan's commitment that he would look at this and look at it in a favourable manner. Can I welcome the 9% VAT rate that I believe is very welcome for the tourism industry and the hospitality industry, because many of my constituency have secured jobs in restaurants, hotels and other related tourist activities, and I think that's very welcomed. And there's been an awful lot of high-tech industries like Facebook and Google that have expanded over recent years in my constituency, but often many of the people that have become unemployed aren't being able to take up those positions. Can I say, at the moment, I give a guarded welcome to the abolition of the travel tax. I look forward to Ryanair delivering on the promised 1 million extra visitors. But, Minister, I would ask you to look at this next year, because if the new visitors are not delivered on, I think we should look at reintroducing that tax. I think it should be conditional. It should be conditional on the delivery. The tourism industry has delivered in relation to the jobs in restaurants and hotels and seeing economic growth. So if this measure works, it'll be very welcome. But I think there's no problem in saying, look, it didn't work, didn't deliver the extra visitors to this country, so we reintroduce it. And I think that should be put down as a benchmark. The small and medium-sized business, I would urge the Minister not to change the date. It would be very hard for people to accurately forecast after 6 or 8 months their end-of-year tax bill. The Department of Finance and Revenue has shown their ability in recent years to accurately forecast revenue, and there's always a risk that no matter when the filing date, that the outturn will be different. And like Deputy Penrose has kind of raised this with me, that he's similarly in rural Ireland saying that this is quite a concern, and certainly in urban Ireland as well, this is a concern. So I would ask you to look at that. The self-employed people could be asked to submit through revenue online an estimate of their end-of-year return to help in budget forecast, but I think there should be no interest or penalty should apply if it proves to be wrong. It would allow us to maintain the current arrangements and give the Department some needed data. We have moved to help SMEs with cash flow by adjusting the VAT threshold, so it would be bizarre to do the opposite with the self-employed by moving the filing date and the pay date. So I would ask you to look at that. I also welcome the home renovation incentive, and I recall my colleague Derek Nolan last year during the budget speech raising this issue, that he believed that there was an area where we could stimulate employment in this area, especially because we've got so many people unemployed from the building industry.
1 minute.
Yeah. And I think it'll also help to tackle the black market in the building trade. I think it will reward compliance with builders, and I think it would encourage people to spend and help grow family homes where you may need more space. So I think the move is very welcomed. The extension of the Living City initiative to Dublin and to all properties built before 1915 has the potential to transform our Georgian core and urban village. So I hope that approval can be sought from the EU under the state aid rule without delay. I think we need to move on that very quickly. Like in my own constituency, we have a glut of pre-1963 houses, mostly Georgian and Edwardian, and I think this initiative will help to bring those units back to family units, because older houses are extremely expensive to renovate, and these houses are coming on the market, our homes are coming on the market. So I think it'll help to build up a strong community in areas like Rathmines, Rathgar and Renla, where families are moving back in, and I know, Chair, you're looking at, so I will conclude at that. So thank you very much. Thank you, Minister.